Hi, everybody. Welcome back. My name is Sue.
Hi, everybody. And again, my name's Alex.
Wonderful to be back with you. And Alex and I have another fabulous topic we are going to explore today. We're going to talk about visualization. And Alex, you were really keen to have a conversation about this. So tell us why.
Yeah, I think it's an often misunderstood concept, and definitely underrated in terms of its potential impact if used in the right way. So, like most things, you can use visualization in a way that will actually undermine your progress, as
Mm,
well as a way that can actually enhance it. And some of the popular stuff that exists on social media, in magazines, etc., I think take people down the wrong road, a
mm.
road that's not supported by science, a road that will actually ultimately cause them to struggle more than potentially if you use the skill set well.
Okay, so that's we're going to have to dig into a few of these
Oh
things
yeah,
because I have read the same sort of thing around the fact that you can end up having these really high expectations and wonder why it
yes,
doesn't happen. So tell us more. Let's explore the downside and where people get it wrong and how pop
sure.
psychology perhaps encourages us to do it wrong. And then we'll get to the how do we do it well.
Sure, yeah. So in essence, the mistake is to confuse visualization with fantasy. So creating a space in your mind where something that's not realistic for you at this moment in time,
Hmm.
you expect to occur. So the example I often use is, if you're sitting at home, closing your eyes and visualizing being a millionaire, the likelihood of somebody putting $1 million on your drive whilst you're doing that is pretty slim. Um, yeah, so I think it can set us up for expectations that we can then be very disappointed in. We can think we're not doing it right. Some of these social media gurus will encourage you to sit there and dream of, having this enormous big house. I mean, I've seen one video where somebody talks about having created an image of this amazing mansion that they're going to live in, and then miraculously they're living in that. And it's like, really? Show me the evidence that that's actually happened to you.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it's moving beyond realistic expectations, and also in your mind avoiding the obstacles that you're going to have to face, avoiding the struggle, because that's a key part of visualization is acknowledging those challenges.
Yeah, so let's go to that moment because I get the sense, and I think I've read this, some of this from a neuroscience perspective, is if your visualization is sort of too far away from your current reality, you might have a nice time in your head visualizing your mansion, etc. But actually, it can lead to a dissonance or a disconnect between how your actual life, and then you feel less than, if you like. So, how might it impact us from an emotional perspective if we do that?
So yeah, you're absolutely right. And what happens then is, as you said before, in fact, it increases people's level of negative experiences because they're feeling, as you said, less than, feeling less than successful. The core concept is called mental contrasting. That's the link to make this
Mm.
work. We'll get to that shortly, but the key here is if the distance is too far away from where you currently sit,
Yeah.
then all the outcomes will be negative for you. It's your brain will immediately realize it's not realistic anyway,
Yeah.
and you'll feel like you're living in this fantasy. You won't know what the next steps are. One of the key things that we've shared in all the podcasts that we've done together is the necessity of taking steps, taking
Yeah.
small action. Well, if your projected vision is so far away from you, how would you know what step to take?
Mm.
If for example I wanted to relocate to the Bahamas right now, I wouldn't know where to start.
Yeah.
Uh, but I might want to explore living somewhere else.
Yeah. I think that's actually really, really important because sometimes people are encouraged to, yes, visualize yourself as a millionaire. I know somebody who was told you've got $473 million that you need to spend over the weekend. What are you going to buy?
Wow.
And I'm like, Okay,
Yeah.
that's an exercise that's kind of maybe a bit of fun. I'm going to buy this island, but it's not a reality, and that person is no closer to buying the island, etc. So, and they realized, thankfully, that that wasn't going to make them happy anyway.
Yeah.
So, tell us then, what should we be doing? So, in these small steps, how can we use the science and the research to do it well?
So it's really, I mean, it's in essence about being practical and realistic about where you sit right now.
Mhm.
And in that example that you've just described, my conversation with that person would have been, well, what is a realistic objective that you want to achieve in this coming week?
Mm.
And let's talk about what sits in between that for you. So you start with visualizing being successful in whatever that would be that you want
Mhm.
to achieve. I'll just pause there for a second. I'm conscious that my wife's watched a few of these and she's told me to stop moving up and down in the seat. So and I can't stop myself.
We get excited.
Exactly. Um, so yes, you create this image of the positive outcome, but a realistic positive outcome,
Yeah.
not a grandiose one. And then what the science shows us is the next step is probably the most important one, where you vividly recall and imagine the obstacles that are going to come your way
Mm.
and imagine and vividly recall overcoming those obstacles, but connecting with the emotions that go with that,
Yeah.
connecting with the struggle as well, not just the positive vibe of having achieved it, but letting it be okay to experience that struggle and feel it in your life. So when you actually get there, you've been through this before.
So let's dig into that a little bit more for the people, especially if they've sort of read some of the pop psychology or heard some of the other things about, oh, just visualize.
Yeah.
Why is that bit so important?
So this is where you become really quite disenchanted and disheartened, is if all you've ever focused on is the magical end moment. When you hit the challenge, this is something your brain has not actually been prepared for.
Yeah.
So it starts to fall apart in that. There's an immense amount of work around this stuff, so uh, it's not kind of I don't. I was trying to think of non-judgmental words to use, but it's really not fantasy stuff that we're talking about here. There's evidence to support this completely,
Yeah.
and if the brain has gone through this mental rehearsal, face the challenges over and over again, when it actually comes to the real event, the brain genuinely believes it's been there before and can overcome this.
Yeah.
But if it hasn't, then you can really struggle desperately as a result of it.
Yeah, and there, Alex, there's some really good research around the power of visualization. I'm sure piano players, they had some that played and some that visualized themselves
Yeah.
playing and things like that. And I wonder, from everything I know about from a neuroscience perspective, is when you've walked down those certain pathways 101 times in your head, as it feels like reality, even though it's visualized, it's grown those neural pathways, which means when you actually get to that point, it must be easier for us.
Absolutely, and this is why most elite athletes use visualization on a
Yeah.
regular basis, because when you actually visualize, for example, lifting an incredibly heavy weight or running very fast, the same muscles spark off in your
Yeah.
body. There's some evidence, it's a bit limited at this point, but there's some evidence that the use of visualization alongside physical activity actually increases the effect of the physical activity.
Mm.
So it looks like, if you're wanting to run more regularly or run longer or run faster, then visualizing doing that will actually increase the likelihood that you'll succeed.
Okay, so let's imagine that somebody hasn't visualized before. What is it actually about? What do I do?
Cool. So, what I would suggest to people is that the best starting point is when you wake up in the morning, spend 5 minutes thinking about the best outcome for that day. Now, again, this is not grandiose. It's not being unrealistic. It's about realistically, with day ahead of you, what would a really good outcome look like?
Mhm.
And then pausing and thinking about what can get in the way of that. what hurdles will come in the way because you can't control everything. I don't know, you might be thinking about going to work and having a really positive day, but your colleagues may not want you to have a positive day. Uh, so you're kind of tracking through, despite all of those challenges, how am I going to handle them if they come along, and what will the outcome look like at the
Yeah.
end of it. And then the additional piece that I like to add on for people is at the end of the day is to sit down and recap what went well in your mind and see it again. Live that moment, feel what you felt, see what you saw, hear what you heard. So be in that moment again of the successful part of the day.
Mm. Yeah, and I think to myself, when I first started doing sort of public speaking and on stage, I would often visualize myself on stage in front of the
Yeah,
audience so that I knew that when I got up there, it wouldn't be quite so,
yeah, yeah,
because I'm already
definitely.
there and I've done it in my head.
Yeah, and this can go really badly wrong if you flip it the wrong way. So when I think about this, I often recall doing a big cycling event in Victoria in Australia, and it was a very hilly event, and it was much more than I had personally ever done before, and I thought I was really well prepared for it. But as I was riding along with a colleague, Peter, uh, I was starting to struggle, and I locked my mind into I'm struggling, I'm struggling, I'm struggling,
Yeah.
and I kept saying to myself, if there's one more hill, I can't do it. And around the corner came the next
One
hill,
more
and
hill.
and that was it. I was gone. I was wiped out. And what I learned from that was, right now I'm back in a similar sort of space. I'm after years of neglecting my fitness, I'm trying to pull it back again, and cycling uphill is a major part of it.
Yeah,
But I'm genuinely sitting visualizing that before each ride.
what a great
See,
idea.
but seeing myself struggle,
Yes,
seeing that I'm going to get out of breath, that my muscles are going to hurt, and then as I'm doing it, I've been there. My
yeah.
my brain's saying, "Yeah, this is difficult, but I've done it before. We can do this."
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that you're doing it now, following something that didn't work before.
Yeah.
So, one question that I do have is I know from a neurodiversity perspective, and people listening to this may know if there's a particular name for it, but there are some people who can't see images in their head. What's an alternative? Because some people can picture really vividly and
Yeah.
some people can't. What are some tips or tricks for any of us?
That's a beautiful question, Sue, because we run into that an awful lot, and a lot of again the kind of social media gurus who allegedly can create all these fantasy worlds with this stuff don't address that challenge, but it exists for a huge proportion of the population. My view is storytelling is the answer to that. So you tell yourself a story in your head. So
Yeah,
yes, you're really using the same technique, but it's words that you're using.
yeah,
So you're creating words for yourself around what what actually you're going to go through and the struggle and how you're going to overcome the struggle. And again, it's not about being unrealistic here. It's not about saying that you're going to walk away from that really hard cycle ride bouncing and ready to dance. It's going to hurt. Um, but we know without a shadow of a doubt from the science that this will uh, increase the likelihood that you'll succeed. And
yeah,
there are some associated kind of odd things that we also know from the science. So there are things that are natural to us as a human species that have emerged from this science that people didn't realize. So, for example, people who were born blind and have never seen anybody succeed in a sporting event still raise their arms in celebration at the end. So there's some things that are innate in
yeah,
us as human beings, and allow that to be the case for yourself. So even if you're, doing something that's kind of to other people would seem trivial, celebrate at the end. Yeah,
yes.
especially if you've overcome struggle.
I love that, Alex. And I remember when I first tried applying positive psychology techniques to running, when I did my first 50 steps, it
Yeah.
was like, yay!
Exactly, exactly. Yes, yeah, and it's okay if you look silly if you do that in the park and other people are watching. Then so what? Because
It gives them a laugh.
exactly, and it might encourage the person who was thinking about doing it and was doubtful.
Yeah. So let's just go back to this because, as I say, we call it visualization, which seems to indicate there is some sort of vision in it, as in seeing.
Yeah,
But you've already said people who are born blind and have never seen may
yeah,
still be able to visualize in their heads.
yes.
And then there are some people who can't get pictures in their heads. So they're painting a picture maybe with
Yeah.
words or something like that. Any additional tips that come from the research about how we can enhance our ability here? If we're just starting out and we're doing the small steps, what other tips do you have for sort of continuing to enhance it?
So there are multiple things here. It depends on really what it's. It's a game of finding out what works for you.
Yeah.
So one person I worked with a few years ago, for her it was drawing the image.
Yeah.
And she couldn't actually see it in her head, but as we talked about it, she could flesh out literally an image on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Somebody else I worked with, I can remember she was saying, I can't see an image, Alex, but I can see colours. And it was, well, okay, let's talk about this explosion of colours. And it was like the rainbow just bursting inside her head
Oh,
was what she
brilliant.
saw. So yeah, I would suggest that you're gonna need to kind of play around to
Yeah.
find what it is that's going to connect with you as a human being. There are also some things here that, again, if we're associating this with goal setting and achieving things, there are some odd pieces of research that seem to be quite strong in the research. So in an endurance event, if you're actually trying to do something over a long period of time, swearing whilst you're doing it appears to increase the efficacy.
Oh no, how naughty.
Yeah, so this emerged from it was called the Sky Cycling Team, but became is now known as INEOS, a British cycling team, and they experimented with it, and they found a 10% increase in performance through just constantly swearing. So
Don't do it in front of lots of people though. You might
yeah,
get in trouble.
exactly. Yes. So that there are lots of odd little things out there
Yeah.
that will help us move forward.
Yeah, and I wonder also again about our ability to sort of bring in different senses, if you like. So within our
Mm.
visualization, like you said, visualize yourself being confronted by obstacles and getting over them. So almost like visualizing the wind on your skin or the tension
Oh,
in different places or the
yeah.
smells that you might encounter or those sorts of things. If we enhance the senses, will that help us with our visualization?
Absolutely. I was for a number of years. I was coached by a gentleman in California, and when he was having a challenge in his life and he wanted to connect in a different way, he would go outside and he would feel the leaves on the trees and close his eyes and reconnect with nature, reconnect with a moment of peace and calm in his life, and bring that calmness. So all of this is not necessarily about, I've used sporting examples, but it could be about dealing with a challenge and staying calm throughout it.
Mm.
That's the level that we're talking about. We're not talking about being an Olympic athlete or anything like that. That you're going to go and have a difficult conversation with somebody, and how are you going to come through that? You might want to stay calm throughout it, fall apart at the end, but
Yeah.
in the conversation, stay calm. So you're seeing yourself doing that.
Actually, yeah, I think that's really interesting because I had a situation recently where I did visualize and I knew it was going to be a really, really tough day, a really
Yeah,
tough situation, especially because I'd been awake since 2 o'clock in the morning and on a flight or traveling to the Gold Coast Airport at
yeah,
4 a.m. Um,
yeah,
but I visualized how it might go, including the challenges, the pain, the difficulty, etc., and how I was going to
yeah.
experience it. And ironically, then it didn't end up happening. But I was really glad that I had those thoughts in my head of this is going to be painful and difficult, and I will get to the end of it and I will be okay.
Yeah, I think, from all of this conversation, I think that's one of the most important things for people to take away from this. Visualization is not, again, not fantasy. It's not suggesting that this is all going to be smooth and easy, and you're going to have that conversation. It's going to be perfect, and you're going to feel like you're floating on a cloud.
I wish.
Yeah, it's recognizing the challenge and that you can overcome the challenge. And in your visualization, you're seeing yourself overcome the
Yeah.
struggle, but you're recognizing the struggle will be there. And you might actually even be feeling the struggle in your visualization. You might
Mm.
feel your breath change as you
Yes.
put yourself in that moment. You might hear your words stumble as you put yourself in that moment. But when you come to the real event, you will have rehearsed, just
Yeah.
like an actor does.
Yeah, I love that. And maybe that's what it is, to your
Yeah,
point, just like an actor, we're
yeah,
rehearsing these things, so it makes it easier in that real moment.
yeah.
So tell me, with what you've got going on, you've mentioned about the cycling, but where else have you practiced visualization recently that's helped you?
Uh, I've just made a major kind of life change, if you like, in terms of my employment situation. And in January, moved away from 46 years of working in the mental health field. And a big challenge was, so who am I now? Well, my work has been my life. It's been every aspect of my life.
Yeah,
And one concern really was, well, what are you going to do? And this might sound silly, but what are you going to think about?
yeah,
So I consciously use visualization at this moment in exactly the same ways I described to you before. The start of every single day, spending 5 minutes thinking about, well, what would today look like if it was a positive day? What hurdles am I facing? What are the challenges I'm gonna have to overcome? How can I look like I performed well in that
yeah,
even though there's struggles? And then at the end of every day, it's not ignoring the things that didn't go well, but savoring the moments that did go well, and
yeah,
sit and take myself back into that. Because again, really, that's just about learning and developing a new skill. All of this is just about developing a skill.
yeah.
So visualizations become a kind of skill set that I'm focused on heavily at the moment.
I love it, Alex. Thank you. And that's helped me no end because you've got a major life change. I'm having a major life change at the moment in my career as well.
Yeah.
And I'm getting a big sense of loss and things like that. So I need to think like you of how do I visualize, well, what's it going to look like on the other side of it? So I'm going to be practicing that, and I'm hoping our listeners will too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's way more powerful than people actually could imagine. As long as you, again, as I said before, you don't fall into the trap of
Yeah,
fantasy. You will hit obstacles, you will hit challenges, and this is really just one technique on the road. It's not the only answer either. I would say that visualization is an extra layer on top of some of the things that we've already talked about in our podcasts. So it's a tool to help enhance those skill sets we've already discussed.
yeah, I love it. Thank you, Alex. And I often talk about these strategies as being a smorgasbord of strategies, and you
Yeah,
choose ones that are going to suit you at that point in time. So
yeah,
thank you so much. That was really helpful, and it's going to be really helpful for me. And I'm going to be starting that probably tomorrow morning to do that visualization of how I
brilliant.
get to, maybe even this afternoon.
Excellent.
Thank you so much, Alex. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you're going to practice it between now and when we meet again in a week's time, and maybe let us know how you get on.
Brilliant. Thanks, folks. Bye.